David Haugh is a columnist for the Chicago Tribune. The headline, Brockman, what was the headline of the Chicago Tribune today?
It was Lambeau bleep.
Wow.
And then Mark Trestman with his head in his chest.
David, your column was about what today in the Chicago Tribune?
My column, Rich, was about George McCaskey, the chairman of the Bears. You're on the clock. It's time to take a step back, reevaluate every aspect of the operation. This is a team that had an offense that averaged 29 points a game last year. It's underachieving. It's a defense that was supposedly put together, built to last. It is a sieve. You have either a lack of talent or a lack of heart. Either answer is troubling, and you've got a team that's not it's tuning out its head coach. And in the most important game of that head coach's tenure last night, they didn't play for him. And it wasn't impressive, and they were unprepared and overwhelmed.
David Haugh of the Chicago Tribune. That is a mouthful, sir. I mean, what when you're saying that, are you calling for everybody to get blown out? Because I mean, it certainly doesn't help Phil Emery that Cutler they go all in on him on a contract, and he's now 1-10 against their hated rival, while the guy Mark Trestman, who they chose as their head coach. They chose him over a guy who is now 8-1 in Arizona. Bruce Arians, if I'm not mistaken, was in line for that job back in the day as well, right?
That's correct. That was a decision that Phil Emery made. And I'm not one of these guys that says you sit down and you fire everybody. I think, though, that if you're George McCaskey and you're running the family business, George Halas founded this franchise in 1920. You owe it to your family, you owe it to the city, to examine every aspect and to figure out where you can improve. Now, maybe that's bringing in a football guy to be team president instead of Ted Phillips, who has been around the organization for a long time. Maybe it's firing your defensive coordinator, Mel Tucker, today. Maybe it's putting Mark Trestman on notice. Maybe it's replacing or giving Phil Emery a football guy to answer to. I don't know exactly what I would do right now, but I do know that inaction will only lead to more disastrous nights like last night. They have been outscored, and they've given up 106 points in the last two games. To embrace the status quo is foolish. So you've got to do something.
Well, they have home dates, and I know that that's not saying a lot because they haven't won at home yet this year. They have home dates against Minnesota and Tampa over the next two. But then after that, they have two nationally televised games in a span of 1 week, being the Thanksgiving Day game against the Lions. The whole country will be tuned into that. And then the following Thursday, they come home to take on the Cowboys on NFL Network. And if they go ahead and lay a nationally televised egg in either of those games, if not both of those games, back to back, is that something that anybody can survive there in Chicago, in your estimation, David?
I would say no, Rich. I mean, that's the most troubling thing. These aren't close games. They're measuring up against some of the elite teams in the NFL, the Packers and the Patriots, and they're not competitive. And that's the most troubling thing. This is not a team that's responding to coaching. They're tuning him out. Jay Cutler has regressed. But the problems go well beyond the quarterback. So you do have an opportunity coming up to put a couple victories together in a row against beatable teams at home. But then it toughens up. You go on national television, and you cannot be the league's symbol of underachievement. You cannot be competing to be the most disappointing team in the NFL. You've got to fix something, and it's got to start somewhere. And maybe later today we'll find out that starts with the defensive coordinator, because something's got to change, the attitude, the personnel, something, because this has been a disastrous season in Chicago.
So, David, that's two references you've made to Mel Tucker's status, essentially, in an oblique manner in our conversation. David Haugh of the Chicago Tribune, last question for you. Are you saying that the fan base might get the figurative head of Mel Tucker served to them on a platter today?
There's some indications that's been discussed. It certainly would be a place to start, and I think that when you look at the scapegoat over the last couple seasons, Mel Tucker's been the most convenient one. In the last 11 games, 3 times the Bears have given up 50 or more points. That's a good place to start. This sure isn't the 46 defense anymore, and the Bears traditionally play a lot tougher brand of defense than we're used to seeing, and we have seen under Mel Tucker. So it wouldn't surprise me at all, Rich.
David Haugh, thanks so much for calling in. I appreciate it.
Take care.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern. On Audience.